Shabbat Shalom. It's the afternoon of April 28th, 2016, and it is the seventh day of Unleavened Bread, which is the last day of the week of Unleavened Bread, which is a High Sabbath, a High Shabbat. This is the most, in my opinion, the most beautiful bridge in all the city of Portland. You know, the city of Portland is known as the city of bridges. We have a lot of bridges, about 8 or 9 of them. But this St. John's Bridge, in my opinion, it's the most beautiful. It's actually created in the same style as the San Francisco Bridge, but obviously it's not gold. And then, of course, you have this beautiful cathedral park beneath the bridge that I'm standing in, and it's just gorgeous. Hallelujah. The reason I chose this particular spot to film this seventh day of Unleavened Bread is the majestic bridge just reminds me of how Yah, when we get our lives right and we turn to Him and we live holy and we love Him with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, love our neighbors, ourselves, and we start keeping His word, seeking to keep His commandments, His Torah, He builds bridges in our lives. He builds bridges to allow us to do things that we weren't able to do before. He shifts things in our lives and spiritually and physically and in many ways, relationships with other people, building bridges that are good, that are taking us in the right direction rather than taking us in the wrong direction or having bridges burn and crash. Sometimes it's good for bridges to burn and crash if we need to turn away from wickedness, but I just thought that was just special to film this while I talk about that. But you know, today's the seventh day of Unleavened Bread. It's the final day of the Jewish feast of Unleavened Bread. And a lot of people don't know that in the Bible, in the scriptures, Joshua and the armies of Israel, you know, they kept Passover right at Gilgal, right as they crossed over the Jordan. They kept the Passover, and then those 7 days of Unleavened Bread, they spent marching around Jericho as Yahweh commanded Joshua and the Levite priests and the armies of Israel. And for 6 days, the people were silent. They just circled the city once, and the priests would blow their horns, their trumpets, their shofars. But then on the seventh day, which is today, this is the second High Shabbat of the Hebrew New Year. The first High Shabbat was on the first day of Unleavened Bread. Now we're on the second High Shabbat. By the way, a High Sabbath, if you don't know, is it's not like a normal weekly Sabbath. The normal weekly Sabbath always happens from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, the seventh day of the week. A weekly Sabbath, depending on the new moon and depending on when Passover falls every year, it can happen on any day of the week. So just so you know that. But anyway, this is the second High Sabbath, or the seventh day of Unleavened Bread. And it was on this day that, after marching around Jericho for 6 days, on that seventh day, this time they marched around the city 7 times on that seventh day, and those 7 ram's horns, or 7 shofars, 7 trumpets that the 7 priests bore before the ark blew it, and the people were no longer silent, but they shouted with a loud shout. And of course, the walls of Jericho came tumbling down. It was the first major victory. Jericho was a very well-fortified city, thick walls, and even archaeology proves now that those walls fell outward. You know, some skeptics of the Bible tried to say, well, those walls fell because the Israelites, you know, attacked the walls and they fell inward, like any siege would have happened. But actually, they found out the walls, based on where the stones fell outwards, which could only be done by Yah, because the people trying to be protected by those walls wouldn't have pushed their own walls outward. So in any case, Yah caused those walls to fall down supernaturally, and then, of course, the children of Israel were victorious over that city, that major stronghold, defeated the enemy, routed them, dedicated the silver and gold to Yah, and destroyed and burned everything else, and saved Rahab and his family. Rahab the prostitute, saved her out because of her faith in preserving the 2 spies weeks before, and she became part of Israel. So we have the first example of a Gentile becoming part of Israel, just like today. Gentiles, through the blood of Yahshua, can become part of Israel. Things never change. It's the same yesterday, today, and forever. In any case, those walls came down. The walls of the enemy came down. So this is Victory Day. This is the day of victory. This is the day in which we should be praying to Yah and saying, you know what, Yah, if my heart's right, if I'm living right, this should be a day of victory. This season should be a season of victory, of those walls of the enemy tumbling down and major victory occurring in our lives in different areas that we're praying for. Of course, this whole month of Aviv is the season of salvation, deliverance, Passover. That whole theme should dominate our lives during this month. But in particular, this day is the day of Passover. So I want to go ahead and grab my shofar. And I think it's appropriate to blow my shofar on this day of all days, because it's, it's time to blow it. So let me do this real quickly. Pardon me while I juggle holding this iPad and everything else. Hopefully I'm not covering the speaker here. Here we go. Hallelujah. Happy 7th day of Unleavened Bread. Happy High Shabbat. The website's www.spiritandtorah.com. Shabbat Shalom.